Hey guys, this is Loony, and in this episode, you're about to see the construction of a fancy nether portal at the base, a cave with a giant octopus built underwater, a secret room leading into that cave, and the treasures hidden below. It has been a long time since there's been an episode in this series. This is episode 27 of the Loony Hardcore Adventure. And in this one, we are taking a trip down memory lane. We're going to have a little bit of a history lesson. As we fly away from the old house through the overworld on a new computer that loads everything in very, very smoothly, we make our way back to the heart of the sea, the ocean base where I've been doing construction, and that's gonna be the main base for the rest of this series. Today, we built a nether portal and a giant cave build to house Gerald, keeper of the conduits and protector of the loot. Today's construction starts around day 740 in the world. At the time that I'm editing this video, we are currently 3,500 days into this world. And the episodes have been on hold for a while, which I think, in hindsight, has been a very good choice. Today, we are working over here. The base is very empty still. There is not much going on. But we are gonna make a difference here. We are gonna change things up. And the first thing we're building is a portal that goes onto the nether roof. As we're working here, a ton of mobs spawn in, because most of the base is pretty much completely spawn-proof, even underground. When that happens, we gotta take care of it. And the one thing that you see me do here is I am very, very careful. I keep a lot of distance from the mobs, because my skills, I didn't trust them yet. So we take our time, aim our shots, and get rid of all of these guys so we can continue construction. The main idea here is that I want to have a very big fancy nether portal on the side of the base. So we're starting by lighting up the back here, which will give it an interesting backdrop, and it will spawn proof behind the portal. We made a big obsidian frame, got ready to light it, and with this in place, we now have to cover it up and kind of work the portal into the rock formation behind it. That started with a lot of frameworking, removing blocks, walking back to check if everything looked right, and figuring out where we needed to build the prismarine blocks. All these prismarine actually comes from the Guardian farm, and you guys can see that I use a ton of sea lanterns around as well, rather than torches. Because while we are busy here, we are collecting resources all the time, and there's only one thing that gets me super excited to get away from the build, and that's the thunderstorm. From the very beginning, I knew that I wanted to collect mob heads. So every time we see some lightning, it is time to try and get the most of it. At this point, that was terrifying. Right now, I have a really good strategy, 3,000 days into the world, for getting mob heads. But here, I am mostly just trying to survive, while also getting a few mob heads here and there. And sometimes, it got a little tense. That was a ton of spiders, but we managed to get a zombie head here. Aim was decent, but my timing, not always so. So this creeper, I actually blew up the wrong one, did not get a head. Aim, again, was decent, but my timing's very poor. So here, I mostly blew up myself by turning my back to the creeper. These are all things that, over the course of playing a hardcore world for a long time, I've learned, and I think you would do too, if you were to commit to a world, because hardcore has a way of forcing you to think about every mistake that you made and find a way to not make it again. Right here, you can see that after I blew up, I start running around. My #1 priority, healing up. And once the health is back, now we can think about mob heads again. So we throw the trident and get busy. Shield in the left hand, totem in the right. Let's get this done. There's no mob here, so we're gonna keep running. Go to the other creeper first. And here I get shot into a pit. These situations are a bit scary. You see me stress out a little bit, but then I find a way up. Manage to get out, see a skeleton in there, and decide to go for it. But what happens? Skeleton is stuck behind the block. So we did not get the mob head yet again. I'm still running in that same thunderstorm, but not much happened for us. I'm taking hits left, right, and center, but I have no mob heads to show for it. Still, gotta keep it going. Get these phantoms out of the way, and try again. This one, no cigar. And we end up with only 2 mob heads to show for the valiant effort. I had some refining to do. This strategy was not great, and I did not have the moves. So I ended up looking like a porcupine with barely anything to show for it. After the thunderstorm finished, it was time to get back to work on that portal thread. What I'm doing here is I'm placing blocks in front of the portal to obscure quite a lot of it from sight, making it a lot more interesting in its shape. And when you're trying to figure out shapes for builds, one of my favorite blocks to use is a stair. But actually just about anything that is smaller than a full block will do a really good job. The goal here is to try and get more definition into the lines than you would normally be able to do with just full blocks. And if you use stairs and switch them around in different orientations, front to back, back to front, left to right, and vice versa, you can get a lot more definition into your lines. As you see here, everything that is not a full block will work, but some blocks do a better job than others. Once the main frame of the portal was done, I tried to expand it a little bit outward from the wall towards the ocean monument, just to give it a little bit more depth in the base as a whole. And sure enough, it was starting to look pretty decent. So it was time to address a few issues where the portal wasn't quite worked into the terrain around it yet. I added a bunch of dirt on the left side and a little bit of a grass floor in the middle around a pond. With that in place, there was one other thing we needed to make it look all fancy: some detailing. So I flew out over the nether roof and I went to a coral reef because I wanted to build coral trees around it. While we were here though, this happened on a stream, found an ocean monument. So I asked everybody, hey guys, you feeling it? Are we going for it? Yes, of course. So as per my old strategy, I made a little entrance chamber. This only works if you have water breathing, aqua affinity, and a good pickaxe, but you can actually mine in through the top if you would really want to. Once inside the ocean monument, the key to surviving it, the key to not getting into trouble, is you have to just move around a lot. So once I entered the room, it is back to my old ways of circling around a pillar, delivering one hit to another guardian, and doing it again. And in any room of the monument, as long as you keep doing this, you break line of sight every time you go behind a pillar, making it literally impossible for the guardians to hit you. Only thing you have to be concerned about is, do I have enough oxygen? Because if you start drowning, you're in a really bad spot. And do I not get stuck on a block? Because if you somehow glitch on a block somewhere, that can be a tricky spot. So you still gotta be careful, but there is a very consistent way to do it. Once I got out of the ocean monument, I started gathering the coral that I came there for. And once we brought that back to base, we started building trees on either side of the portal. Now I wanted to make these really nice and colorful. So I was gonna use coral reef blocks for it, which fits really nicely with the ocean theme for the entire base. But to make a coral reef tree, you have to make sure that every coral block is actually touching water. So the inside of these trees has a ton of water sources stuck on slabs to make sure the coral around it doesn't die. Once the portal build was mostly completed, I made my way back to the Enderman farm because there's one piece of armor that I really want. Up until this point in the world, I have had protection 4 on every single piece, but it is actually better to have blast protection, so I enchanted these diamond leggings, called them Protect the Booty, because the booty gotta be safe. The way this works actually with the enchantment levels, you can check it out in a video that I link down below in the description, because once you have protection 4 on every piece, you effectively have 16 out of 20 maximum points of protection for every type of damage. That is blast damage, fire damage, or projectile damage. Now in the overworld, I am not so likely to die from projectile or fire damage, so I would much rather have a better blast resistance. This cave that I mined out on this corner of the base, it needed to be filled back up with water. Because this is where I'm gonna have my Gerald build, my guardian octopus, the keeper of the conduits, protector of the loot, but mostly our best friend in this whole base. And to get the materials needed to build Gerald, I went over to this end city to get a lot of blocks. And get a lot of blocks? I absolutely did. I think you guys are gonna enjoy this. If you haven't seen the clip yet, this is what it looks like if you get your pickaxe and start swinging it at an ant city, and you just don't stop until all of it is gone. Back at the base, it was time to check up what goals still needed to be done. All of these signs are missions that I had to complete the build, missions that I had to progress the world, and I worked on them. I worked on them quite a bit. Find a coral reef was one that took a long time, but once we got it done and we could build the end portal build, the base actually started to get some traction. Up until this point, I've had the floor, I spawn-proofed it, I have the Guardian farm working, but it doesn't really feel like a base yet. It feels like a big pit that is still under construction. One of those building sites that doesn't really tell you what the end project is going to look like yet. So I wanted to get a lot more done. I wanted to get a feeling that it was a home, an actual base, rather than a build in progress. While we kept building here, the Guardian farm kept running. So I was getting lots and lots of resources for later. For now, we were going to use the resources that we got earlier and try and get that Gerald build done. So one step at a time, I built a small section of the build and then moved out to get a better look at the progress that we were making. Figured out the next lines, figured out the block palette, and started building the outlines for the tentacles. I built one line for each of his 8 arms to see where the arms would go. I counted how many blocks they were long to make sure that they were all about the same size and we didn't have one huge massive tentacle. Now most of these details, you don't really see them in the bigger picture of a build. But if you're getting them right, there is a very good chance that your proportions for everything are gonna work out a lot better than when you didn't think about all these things. Another thing to always consider is spawn proofing, which is why we are placing slabs here on the top of the tentacle, that little tiny bit that comes out of the water, just to make sure that no mobs can spawn on it. And talking about mobs, I found these pillagers just outside the base. Made a little slip up, got a bad omen, and accidentally flew over my iron farm here, which triggered a raid on the main base. Now, raids at this base, they have been absolutely wonky. They are super strange because the villagers are trying to attack a village that is somehow floating in the air above their heads and they have no idea how to get there. So their AI goes completely haywire and they just start running around like mad idiots. There's one catch though. Sometimes, all of a sudden, all their AIs trigger together to attack the player, like all at one moment. And it created some scary situations. So I tried to run out and oh my! That was one of the biggest scares that I had at this base ever. If I was like 5 blocks further back, I would have been fully surrounded on their spawn. Now I had my armor on, so there was a decent chance that I still could have gotten out of it. But small things in hardcore Minecraft can go really, really wrong. And it can put you in a terrible place. This time, we got a little bit lucky. I tried to keep my distance, killed these pillagers off, killed the ravagers off, and wave after wave, fought my way through to the end of this raid, vowing to never ever trigger one again at the base, because they are so uncomfortable to fight. It feels safe, it looks safe, but there were a bunch of tricky situations that I would have rather avoided. With this guy sniped though, we got a raid victory. And it was time to continue our build. And I gotta tell you guys, this is a moment of some major nostalgia. Because I spent a few streams working on that octopus build, working on Gerald. And I was really excited to get it done. After we get it done, I had a stream the next day. And I started building this transitioning room through that shipwreck into the treasure room that is hidden below where Gerald sits. You see the diamond, the emerald, the gold blocks here? That build, that transition room, that tunnel, was an overnight build. I just stayed up for like 5 hours to dig everything out, decorate it, and kind of surprise everybody the next day with what I have done. And once I did that, it changed something. It changed my mindset altogether. So from there, I got so excited about the streams that I decided to do something special. I did an event, I called it, which was called the Tidal Wave. And Tidal Wave is a moment that some of you guys may remember very well. It is a moment where a bunch of people started following the streams because we just had a ton of fun that week. We basically did everything that the base still needed to complete it. I focused for 1 full week, streamed every day of that week, and we had a blast. So Tidal Wave is where we pick it up next time, as we continue construction on the heart of the sea, the heart of the season, the core of this hardcore world, but definitely not the last project that we will make. Guys, I want to thank you very much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And very soon, I will see you in episode 28 of the Loony Hardcore Adventure.